welcome to Newsclick. Few days back in Dadri, a man named Akhlaq was killed just because people had doubt that he was possessing and eating beef. To discuss on the issue, we have with us Gautam Navlakha, an eminent human rights activist. Hello Gautam.
Hello Pranjal.
Just leaving aside first of all the entire issue of beef ban and the history of beef ban, let's throw some light on whatever happened in Dadri. Don't you think it's one of the rare incidents, and it also shows a trend in the current government which is constantly attacking fundamental rights of the citizen?
Well, if you can enter somebody's house ostensibly to search for or because of suspicion that beef was being served or is present inside the house, and then to drag out a person and to kill and to injure grievously another, obviously is a sign of times that we are living in. And I do believe that this lynching and the assassinations that have taken place have one thing in common. Both are intended to terrorize the democratic, progressive minded as well as the minorities from any way asserting themselves.
Also, if we look at it, when you talk about creating a hegemony, there's an entire propaganda of RSS and its allies that to push the entire ideology of upper caste Brahmin culture. Don't you find there's this angle also attached to it?
Sure it is. I mean, the whole campaign, the cow slaughter ban related campaign that has been favorite whipping horse of RSS and BJP for ages. They obviously are making use of that campaign to create further divisions and cleavage and exploit cleavages that already exist. Very definitely, and it's also imposing choice of a small section on majority of the Indian people. So it's a strange case of how the food politics are being driven in this country by an ideologically dominated, ideological project which is trying to hegemonize the entire discourse in this country.
When we look at the political discourse in the country, BJP is claiming, and it has a valid point in that the beef ban which was imposed, if you go to its history, it was also there when the Congress was in power.
There is no doubt that post 1950, when we got ourselves the constitution, it's the Congress which was in power in most of the states, and where one after another on different dates they did introduce cow slaughter bills. The interesting thing is that that itself ran counter to the very nature of debate and the division that took place in the Constituent Assembly over the issue of cow slaughter ban. Because if you recall, the differences between those who wanted cow slaughter to be made part of a fundamental right, that is the ban to be imposed and be made part of fundamental rights. The others who countered or questioned that policy and wanted a much more scientific and modern approach towards animal husbandry came to an understanding, and that is why it became part of directive principle of state policy. Now, if you just allow me a minute, if you look at the formulation in the Article 48 of the directive principle of state policy, let me just read out, because that clearly shows how not only Congress but even more the RSS and BJP have actually virtually hijacked the constitution. Now, the Article 48 says, I quote, "The state shall endeavour to organize agriculture and animal husbandry on modern and scientific lines, and shall in particular take steps for preserving and improving the breeds and prohibiting the slaughter of cows and calves and other milch and draft cattle," unquote. Now, the point is that there are two contradictions. A scientific modern animal husbandry requires culling. Culling is also required if there are fear of disease, for instance. Culling is also advocated to get rid of those milch cattle who have stopped giving milk or have become old, The point I am trying to make is that if you go by the spirit and the language of Article 48, there are two things that stand out. It doesn't talk about a blanket ban on slaughter of any kind, because scientific and modern animal husbandry requires culling and you can't get away from that. The second interesting thing is that nowhere does it ban eating and possession of beef, and that is, this is an issue which relates to Dadri, where even under the UP's State Act, which was enacted in 1955, possession and eating of beef was not a taboo. So for people to enter inside the houses, to see, to check, they were a lawless force which entered in fact to strike terror amongst in Akhlaq's family, and by getting rid of him and killing him and lynching him, they have sent a message which they have been spreading over the social media, that this is what will happen to cattle smugglers and cattle slaughterers.
Gautam, when you talk about these different groups which are acting on the ground, so I mean, what role are they playing on the ground? Because if you look, suddenly Sangeet Som steps in and calls for a Mahapanchayat, and suddenly people assembles. And what's the role that has been played by the UP administration itself in either trying to avoid the incident, preventing the incident, or its role ahead?
Just note one thing, that it's very interesting that I mean, to respond to your first question, that the fact that at a call from a temple, hundreds of people could gather so fast against a neighbor who has lived amongst them for decades, shows obviously premeditation and preparation. Now obviously this preparatory work has been done by these small groups that have sprouted all of a sudden. They seem to have enough funds, they seem to have resources, they seem to have some organizational backing, because their proliferation itself suggests that, and they have been obviously carrying out their vicious campaign for some time, for it to result in the kind of lynching that took place. As far as the UP police is concerned, it's alarming that whereas they were not able to prevent this from taking place by cracking down or by looking into the antecedents and activities of these groups which were busy rousing the people to take law into their own hands, etc. The UP DG, the Director General of Police, recently after the lynching, in an attempt to divert attention from the lynching, spoke of that the UP police is very concerned about the vitiated atmosphere due to high incidence of cattle slaughter and cattle smuggling in the state, and that they are going to crack down on it hard so that such incidents do not occur in future. Now the point is that this is a way of exonerating the cold-blooded murderers of Akhlaq from any blame by shifting focus on cattle smuggling and cattle slaughter which is going on, which is a strange thing, because in the case of Akhlaq, and I think it needs to be emphasized, even if beef was present in his house and they had partaken, the point is they were not doing anything illegal. So what right does anybody have to enter anybody's house, to look into their kitchen and to see whether something objectionable or prohibited is being served?
Yeah, Gautam, actually when you talk about these organizations, recently a report came that around 10 plus organizations of such kind or such nature are acting or are on the ground in Dadri itself. So I mean, and when you quote these laws, there's also a clause called fit to slaughter. So can you just throw some light on it? And
you see, what is interesting, at all the state acts, if you look, the definition of milch cattle differs. So in Maharashtra they changed the act recently by enlarging the definition of what constitutes cow or cattle which cannot be slaughtered. So from cow and calves, they have now included buffaloes, bulls, and everything else. So it differs from state to state. But even within the states where slaughter of, slaughter of buffaloes is permitted, the people who purchase cattle for slaughter or transports cattle from one place to another for whatever purposes require a license. Now, in the case of cattle that is being taken for slaughter, they require the fit for slaughter certificate, which allows them to move unhindered on the national highways from one place to another. Unfortunately, despite this protection and despite the fact that most of the vehicles that have been the cases, the incidents of so-called alleged cattle smuggling and movement of cattle for illegal purposes, etc., is concerned, invariably in overwhelming majority of the cases, they have licenses, they have the set permit, but still it does not prevent hoodlums to come and beat them up, or take them, detain them and hand them over to police, or the police to come and arrest them. It's only after long drawn out investigation, probably bribes, etc., that these people are released and they are allowed to move with their with the cattle and the transport. And this has become increasingly a problem. So by changing the law, whatever may have been the original act, improving it by expanding the definition, making stringent the jail terms. For instance, in Haryana, you can get 10 years. I mean, you don't even get 10 years for rape in under the Indian procedural code, but penal code, but for cow slaughter, you can get up to 10 years rigorous imprisonment. So it's the absurdity of law. For instance, it's very it may sound amusing to us also at times that in Punjab, for instance, a desi cow, an indigenous cow cannot be slaughtered, but a foreign cow can be. So I mean, it obviously gives a different meaning to holy cow in a state like Punjab, whereas in other states they make no distinction between foreign and native breeds of cattle. But the differences, the fact that in some states some slaughters are allowed, in other cases no slaughter is allowed, the various provisions under law which operate within the state boundaries create a huge problem for those and the millions who are engaged in cattle trade in one way or another. And there are millions who are attached with this trade and who get their livelihood from one or the other kind of activity which is connected to animal husbandry.
Gautam, this would be my last question. If you look at this entire issue and comments being made by the BJP top leadership, yesterday Sakshi Maharaj said that Nida will allow killing and whoever kills will kill them also. What nature of government is exposed by this entire series of comments being made by this top leadership of BJP while Prime Minister being silent on these issues? And
I think silence speaks for itself. Mr. Narendra Modi's silence speaks for itself because it means that he supports whatever the hoodlums of RSS, Sangh Parivar and their other cohorts are doing, saying and actually carrying out in reality. Obviously it enjoys his support. That said, it does raise very serious concerns for us, because this open declaration that we will kill from Sanatan Sanstha declaring that all anti-nationals would be killed, and according to them they have a very narrow understanding of who a patriot is, to those who are saying that anybody who is for cow slaughter can be killed. it just shows the level of impunity that they believe and they feel confident that they enjoy today, because their government is in power at the center, and the forces, both the police and the administration, is definitely following their command. And therefore, the combination of this, you know, the corrupting or the supine nature of the institutions succumbing to the pressure of the RSS to do its to carry out its diktat, and in the society, you know, the RSS goons and Sangh Parivar hoodlums speak openly against everybody, that threatening to kill them, to silence them, and do the worst thing possible to them. It just shows you what kind of a country that they're trying to turn us into.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for watching Newsclick.